Hello, I'm Susan Mulholland, and welcome to Artbeat. Tonight we're going to enter the world of masks from the inside and the out. We'll be with Carole Sivin from Chestnut Hill. She is a sculptress as well as a mask maker. Masks have been with man since the very beginning of time. They're pictured on cave walls. They were used in ancient Egypt and ancient Greece. Come meet Carole with me and enter the world of masks. What soul creatures long gone inhabit these sightless facades which stare outward at us, the observers? Silently upon this world, hollows gape with wisdom. What are they contemplating? To what do they bear witness? Their silence hangs heavy here, yet their import cannot be missed. Sightless observers give silent commentaries. Masks. Carole Sivin has an extensive background as an artist, a teacher, an author, and an innovator in the performance arts using masks. She formed the performance group Mask Transit, which was active in Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Toronto, and Tokyo. She is the author of this recent book on the history and craft of mask making. Carole exhibited most recently at Wheaton College in 1989 and in February 1990 at the gallery of the Matsuya department store in Tokyo, Japan.
Well, basically, my excitement with masks began about 15 years ago when I went to Kyoto and saw the No drama for the first time. Now, I had been trained as a painter and printmaker and had just started working with clay. So I was primed for three-dimensional art at that point. I was very excited about it. And I saw my first performance of No, and it absolutely riveted me. It was as if this performance was for me only. And it just made a link with my soul that was so astounding. The masks in No are over 500 years old, and one is still able to see masks, ancient masks, in museums, and there's a repository called the Shoso-in Nara, where occasionally you do see masks on display. But the drama itself, with its lack of scenery, there are very few props on the stage, very little distraction. You focus on the masked dancer, and basically a neutral mask that changes in expression when it's tilted. And I had never seen anything like that before. While I was sitting in the No drama, I sketched, just looking at the stage and not even looking at my sketchbook. And I have some of these here for you to see. Even in the Xerox, the power of these masks come through. So, as a result of my sketches, as a result of seeing the theater, I wanted to make masks and use clay. So some of my very earliest masks were pieces of clay pressed to my face, and where I got very, very simple features. Some of these I liked very much and kept and had them fired. Others were just disposed of. But at that point, I just wanted to explore the idea of simple masks with clay. Another kind of mask that I saw was Kyogen, the Kyogen drama. And Kyoto is especially rich in Kyogen. They use ancient masks from the 14th century and very old costumes too. The parishioners of the temple are the actors, so they're amateurs who come in and wear these masks. And again, the props are simple. The stage sets are very, very limited, but the drama is unbelievable. Now, they explore some of the same themes as the no drama, and they also have a moral story. You know, they teach Buddhist lessons to the audience. They're very funny sometimes, and the audience just bursts into laughter and has a great time. They're all done outside on a little stage that's opposite where the audience sits. And the audience is very, very close to the action. So there's no escaping it. It's some of the most wonderful moments I've ever spent in my life. The kabuki is another kind of drama that's seen often in Japan. And it does not really employ masks. Very rarely is there a mask drama, but it has exciting face makeup. And it's really powerful. Carries across these, the stage is larger, the production is very, very showy, and they have tremendous scenery effects. There are makeup changes on the stage, costume changes, transformations. A character can turn into a fox or a supernatural creature. It's some of the most amazing scenic effects that I have ever seen. The last time we saw kabuki, a rider on a horse went from the stage up to the third balcony. There are boat scenes where the person is actually rowing a boat, and it features a long bridge from the back of the auditorium to the stage. And the important action takes place on the bridge, going to the stage. And it's really astounding. But as I say, the masks are not so important in that drama, but it has many other things that you know, one really loves to see. Another thing that I saw all the time in Japan is festivals, neighborhood festivals, seasonal festivals, things for harvest and spring and winter. There were things, festivals and matsuris, they're called, that took place in the countryside. Beautiful fire festivals. And in all of these, I saw the mask. Little children would wear masks. You could buy masks in some of the shrine headquarters. One particular festival that really, you know, influenced me then and now was Gion Matsuri. And that takes place in July. It's a very, very big production in Kyoto, where the electrical wires are taken down on the streets to make room for these huge floats. And the crane and heron dance is part of this festival. Little children wear these heron headdresses, and the wing motions are very important. And that has influenced me. I've kept the heron dance in mind for years, and I've begun making some of these large headdresses that fit on top of the head to extend the dancer and make him or her very tall. I've just made a couple of those masks now, but I intend to make many more. The Gion Matsuri lasts for about 3 days, and it has a very special music, and is something that people travel from all over Japan to see in Kyoto. It's certainly enriched my time there. When I went to China, I wanted to see 2 things: Peking opera and gaucho, which is stilt dancing. And I was very impatient to see these things, but it takes time. When you go to China, you don't necessarily see the things that you want to see when you want to see them. So I was especially interested to see the stilt dancing, because I had seen photographs of it, and it really looked exciting. Well, I had to wait for a while. When New Year's came around, they did stilt dancing at New Year's time in a park. But it was freezing, and the weather was raw, and I couldn't necessarily get that close to see the stilt dancing. So I was very disappointed. I had to wait about 3 more months before I could get backstage in Beijing Opera. I say Beijing, Peking Opera. I eventually was taken back behind the scenes, and it turned out to be thrilling. We would go to Chinese opera every night and sit in the audience, and it was really thrilling. The acrobatics, the costumes, the makeup that actually looked like abstract shapes from a distance. I mean, it was just like design. You were not aware of the actor's eyes a lot of the time, just the design of the makeup. And I wanted to see more and more and more. And I was frantically drawing again. I just filled whole sketchbooks at Chinese opera. We were able to sit in the front row for maybe $1, equivalent of $1, and just see the most magical theater that I had seen in years. My husband and I were actually able to go backstage and go back night after night and watch them apply the makeup. And I would just sit there with my camera and my sketchbook and watch these people, these actors, apply makeup for hours. And they have a brush and some paint, and they sit in front of a mirror and apply the makeup. And they're just so focused on this. No one else helps them apply the makeup. After they finish with the face painting, they go downstairs to a costume room, and they're helped into these very elaborate costumes. And it's unbelievable to watch the process. There are wigs hanging on the side of the room, the costumes are on hangers, and all of the other little props they use. So it was great. That was a wonderful experience. Chinese opera is very old. Some people say it's the Zhou dynasty. Other people say that the Tang dynasty is when it really started, about 8th or 9th century. But it has existed for many centuries in one form or another. The stories are old, they're legends. The story of Monkey is one that is used very often in Chinese opera. Monkey, the tale of Monkey, the priest who went searching for immortality with his monkey and pig guides, has great opportunities for acrobatics, magic, all sorts of transformations. Monkey battles the monsters with thousands of episodes, and it's just fantastic. The monkey drama is also very present in the stilt dancing, and there are some incredible masks with the stilt dancing. And again, the face makeup. The stilt dancing is like nothing I have ever seen before. I think these stilt dancers should come and perhaps perform in the Mummers Parade, because they'd really show us something incredible. The Korean mask is another intriguing mask for me, although I've never actually been to Korea. I had a Korean friend who knew of my interest in masks, and he kept sending me the magical masks from Korea. I really hope to go there in the next few years and see some of this dance. The masks are very old, from the 3rd century. They have excavated some very simple half masks made of stone, I think, and decorated with gold leaf. These are really haunting, but the Korean mask is sometimes made of gourds, sometimes of paper mache, and they always have attached hoods, which is kind of a new thing in the Orient. I haven't seen the attached hoods in many places, or if I've seen it, I haven't seen it consistently used. But the artist always signs the back of the mask, and the drama is, again, using very elaborate costumes with real long sleeves, and the sleeve play and the hand gestures are very, very important with Korean drama. There are stock characters, and it has been designated as a national treasure now. So more and more of these dances are being seen. the Koreans are able to instill some of their political ideas in the drama. It's always been satirical and a comment on the politics. So you never exactly know what you're going to see when you see this drama. I had a project at Temple to teach actors, how to make bird masks. And it made me very, very conscious of really trying to create masks that worked well with dance and had a stability and a balance. So I began making my own bird masks. The birds rise up above the dancer's head and, are very much a part of the mask. I at first made them a little, I wanted to show movement and the birds moved more, but then I realized that they were not strong and would not last that long if they had a flexibility like that. The one on the right was recently done in late '89 when I was a fellow at McDowell Colony. And in my wonderful studio there, I watched the birds come to the bird feeder. And I made this as sort of a playful mask that incorporated some of the tentativeness of the birds when they came outside my window. I watched them all day long. When I finished, that's actually that mask is built on a bicycle helmet and is extremely strong and very light. Both of these were recently shown in Japan, and people were very surprised at the lightness and actually the strength of them. When I finished McDowell Bird, I dedicated it to Alvin Ailey, the great dancer who recently died. Now, the mask that is on the taller sculpture stand that kind of looms above the other two is a heron, a crane, or a different kind of bird that is influenced by that Gion Matsuri that I saw in Japan many years ago. And it's meant to loom high over the dancer's head and to almost have the feeling of having its neck extend and then come back and be in movement, although it doesn't actually move. Its shadow, again, is very important to create that idea of the negative positive space on the wall, the idea of movement, and the interaction with the other birds. Recently, I have, of course, like many artists, had to pay attention to the environmental disasters that are just daily in every newspaper. And this project is going to take a while, but the mask headdress that is enveloped in the net and the long leaves is something that can actually be worn too. It's made on a bicycle helmet, and I really want to see a group of dancers address these environmental issues wearing these masks. I'd like to see a dancer actually get tangled in masses of net and have that feeling of being trapped, like the bird is being trapped. Now, my most recent sculpture that it addresses this idea of the nets, the wall of death, as they're called, that are in the ocean, is that top bird, and I call it Anonymous Bird Fighting for Its Life Somewhere in the World. It's a bird that I don't even know what kind of bird it is, and it's also not very entangled in the net, but the net is getting more and more of a hold on the bird, and it will probably lose this struggle. I made the net out of materials that are thrown away every day into the sea, into the earth. It's stuff that I find when I'm walking home, pop-top cans, the long netting that is used for strength. All sorts of things that are just debris on this earth. The thing that keeps me involved with masks for all of these years and promises to continue is the idea of collaboration with people. Now, some of these performance pictures will show a performance that might have lasted a minute. Others are performances that show rehearsals and commissions that I've had with dance groups and theater people. They all give me much pleasure. I love the 1 second performance as much as the, extended time I spend with performers and dancers. So this is called laminated paper mask, Susan, and it's good for working with children or with adults, and the beauty of it is that the materials are very cheap, it's simple, the mask fits very nicely, you can alter it at any time. 2 people can work on one person's face and get a framework that really fits the person who's the sitter. Then the person who is the model or the sitter can take the mask off at any time and hang it up on the wall and experiment, see what else has to be done. I usually tell people that a mask is not a short thing. It takes a long time to make a good mask. And with this technique, you can just keep working on it whenever you have a few minutes. And by hanging it up near your workplace, you can be constantly thinking about it.
Now, are you building the framework now?
Right. And I have torn little pieces of paper like this. Mm-hmm. You tear and you'll start seeing that the grain of the paper controls the way it tears. If you tear in one way, it may not tear as easily as in the other direction.
And you want the texture. This is just butcher paper.
This is just paper bags and butcher paper, craft paper. Mm-hmm. You see how you get a very nice, even strip. And you have these little hairs, these little capillaries at the end that take the glue. They receive the glue very nicely, and you don't get a rough edge that shows up in the final mask. So we're using these paper pieces that are already on as channels for another piece of another strip. Now, I like this technique because if someone is afraid of being covered, if they start getting claustrophobic, you can leave as much open space as you wish. So the person has good visibility, can breathe well.
And it's light.
Very light. And you can make a half mask for people who need to sing or to perform or read poetry.
Now, how many layers more would be necessary?
Well, I like to put at least 8 layers on a mask until it's no longer resilient or flexible.
And I guess you could use, for texture, you could use any type of paper after you get this basic structure.
You can put a different color on next, so you can see where one layer ends and another layer begins.
As you've worked with people doing workshops, do you see a transformation in them when they are making their mask, and then do things come out that they are surprised about?
Oh yes, it's constantly a process of revealing and concealing, and the person learns so much through each of these processes that we're doing, especially at the end when it comes to embellishing or really being creative with the final layer, whether the person chooses to paint, to collage, to add textures, then you get a lot of individuality. You, as the real artist, could refine it when you took it off and examined it. You could cut away areas that you don't like, areas that do not work for you, and add something more carefully. You could work a little more carefully with smaller pieces of paper. You could cut edges away. You could start adding, horns or features, or fill in this area on top of the mask with more paper so that you could build an elaborate headdress. Now, to take this off, you would just pull it off yourself, and it comes off very easily. And we get a nice framework, you see.
Oh, it's exciting.
Yeah.
To see what you...
Definitely. So it could become an animal mask, it could become a half mask, you could extend it up into a headdress. What you would do probably is to just tack it up on your wall and look at it and think of the character that you wish to create.
I know you just had an exhibit in Japan, but it was in a department store. That seems very strange by American standards to have an exhibition in a department store.
It's the best place to have one, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, when you think about the number of people.
Yeah, I showed at a place called Matsuya in the Ginza, which is prime real estate. Wonderful store. And it's very well known for its design and fine arts galleries. So I had a large space, and people flooded through the show at all times.
Of course, you were doing something that is basic to their history, too,
right,
but in a modern interpretation. Now, this isn't the first time you've had an exhibit there.
No, I had an exhibition 2 years ago at the American Center in Kyoto, and I think that's what led to this show. That was very different, though. It was in a secluded place, and there were people who went there to read the books, and some who went to see the show. But this was unbelievable.
Well, you let me see your video from Wheaton College, and I couldn't get over. I was an observer watching this exhibit. It was done by a handheld camera, and the noise in the gallery, and the people talking to each other, and then the silence of the masks staring out at them. I don't think I'll ever forget that image.
Oh, it is a riot. And there was a lot of noise at my opening in Tokyo, too, plus television cameras and
you were on the nightly news.
Food. Not yet. It's going to be on in another month or so. But there were so many things happening at once. It's very, very confusing.
And then it all stops quite suddenly.
And then it stops, and you're left. It's like a theater that's empty after a performance. It's life and death. And at the end of a show, you're just kind of left with your work once again. And it's very strange.
Yes. Now, in the future, Carole, what new directions are you taking?
Well, I intend to keep going with this environmental series and the birds. And I think through that, I'm going to be making contact with a lot of people to collaborate with.
Other artists.
Other artists, writers, people who are very concerned about the environment. And I am planning to go back to Japan next year and work with this Miyako Fuji, who is also very environmentally conscious and wants to create a piece where we really address this problem of the problems for the earth.
Yes.
It's not only for birds, it's for everyone. You see, I want my masks to look as if they were just dug up, like they're archaeological products. I want them to be timeless, cultureless, and have the patina of time. And I think that's because of the Oriental influence.